So the Illumination out there who have been day one, A1 since day one, listeners who have been soldiers in the fight for truth right alongside us from day one. They understand that we, in our search for truth, have discovered things in the game that get swept under the rug, that disappear without a sound, without a peep from the league. How is it possible that Buddy Hield could take and make a three-pointer plenty inches behind the line, the three-point line, and everyone acts like they didn't just score that a two-pointer? The very first episode of Basketball Illuminati, we put the people on notice that these are things that need to be corrected. These are things that need to be spoken for. And it wasn't just that shot, was it, Amin?
No, it was Kyle Lowry against the Charlotte Hornets late in the Heat season. It was Max Strus in the playoffs against the Boston Celtics in the conference finals. It was the other one?
Giannis at the free throw line of all these. Yeah.
It was Giannis at the free throw line. Look, man, we've got all sorts of examples throughout the history of Basketball Illuminati. I'm not even going to say the history of the league. I'm not going to go that far. 76 years? You kidding me? As a podcast, we are barely a year old, and we have uncovered and dived deep into multiple failures of the system to catch mistakes by refs. Refs are human. There will be mistakes. I'm never going to sit here and bash the refs. I think they try their best. But the idea is that we have a system in place of checks and balances for when they make mistakes, for those mistakes to be rectified. But I submit to you that the system just doesn't work if we keep having the same issues that we can all see with our own two eyes.
So, I mean, what if I taught you, what if I told you that the system's changing?
Changing?
Now, I talked to a bunch of executives and staffers around the league, and I've been made aware of a certain development that you might sit there and say, well, what's the big deal? Teams are preparing for a change in command on player tracking data as soon as next season. Player tracking data where cameras are in the sky and they're tracking every player's movement and the ball and the referees. And up until this point, it has been implemented by Second Spectrum, which you've seen Second Spectrum data.
If you've ever seen the data where they say so-and-so drives from 20 feet out more than any other player in the league, or so-and-so shoots 48% from three on closely guarded threes, right? Or after two dribbles, or all that stuff is coming from Second Spectrum.
That's right. And, you know, what are the toughest shot makers in the league? ESPN's done a great job for years crunching the data, Second Spectrum data, player tracking data.
Qualified shot quality, all that stuff. Yeah.
Really cool.
I like Second Spectrum. I've used Second Spectrum before. I enjoy it as a product as far as the stats go. But, Tom, we're not talking about the data that teams use to better themselves or to, suss out who's the better player or not. We're talking about the system they use in Secaucus and the system they use for reviews. Like, you're telling me, hold on.
I think I got a better way to go here.
Go. All right.
So that kind of plays into I was blind.
Yeah.
So, I mean, yes, you're right. Second Spectrum has done a great job, and teams are very happy with the data and their pick and roll packages that they're able to say, oh, when we run a pick and roll, we are 1.35 points per possession. And when opponents run their pick and rolls and play calls and speed and all this really cool
going
stuff.
under, going over, by all the different calls. Yeah. All right. I'm trying to follow here.
So, I mean, their NBA is deciding what company to go with going forward on player tracking data. And what teams have told me.
That is that contract up already?
It appears that way. It appears that the contract is coming to a close at the end of this season. That right now teams are prepared their staffs for a changing of the guard in some form or fashion. And that new guard on the player tracking data is they're preparing for a new name, Sony.
Sony, like my TV.
Sounds like a pretty old name.
From the makers of the Discman.
The
Walkman.
Discman. Yep.
PlayStation
2.
And 3. Don't forget about 3.
4. And 5.
Now you might be sitting there and wondering, Sony, why Sony? Why are they taking this player tracking data and going with the makers of the Discman? Well, spin this one around.